much. Charles. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Charles. Push. Reverse. Switch. Reverse. Smoky. Push. short form? Did you be second? Or? Oh, okay. We'll start with that. Together? Oh.
Everybody, how do you feel? Wonderful. So, one thing different about Tai Chi and other disciplines is, sequence. So, all the traditional arts work off of sequence. And, that's one of the benefits of learning sequential type things, because it does take memory. But, as you build these order and sequential things in your brain and in your body, it starts to become, innate. So typically when we learn something, it becomes habitual. Any type of movement we have becomes habit. In fact, there's a lot of things that we do become habit. So learning movement is, one way of perfecting movement is through making it habitual. But you could have bad habits as well as good habits. So the good habits are what you struggle with, trying to refine it and trying to figure out where it should be. So, referencing your body is something I use a lot, because there's nothing like referencing joint angle positions. That's the only way you can measure them. But measuring it is really a sensitivity to space. So that applies to every joint in your body, from the feet down or from the feet up to the top of your head. You're measuring where your body position is. That's proprioception. So when we learn to, say, sink, which is dropping down, sinking is going down. So when we lift the arms, you want to let your elbows go down. So because if you just kind of bring them here, you only went up, you didn't really bring them back down. So to tie the movements together, you have to go down before you go up. So that's sort of the course and the balance in motion. Because when you go up, it allows you to go down. When you go down, it allows you to go up. When you go forward, you go backward. You can go backward, you go right, you can go left. So that's easier said than done, or it's easy enough to understand. It's a concept. But our body doesn't do what we want it to do, because we don't tell our body to do that. We don't tell our body to do that because even though we house that bit of information here, we haven't transferred that information to the body. Right? So there's a process to get that to happen, and the process is to do it. That's the only way you can actually achieve it. In exercise physiology or exercise physiology, that's what's taught as specific training. Anything you do is specific to the task. So you want to get better at push-ups, you do push-ups. You could use similar groups of muscles by doing bench presses, but it's still not the same, because you're lying on a bench and you're only isolating your arms, right? When you're doing a push-up, you're actually balancing on your toes or the balls of your feet. You're keeping your body in a rigid position, and you do that. So it's more than just doing this, right? So when we're doing something like this, and we're standing on one leg, it's more than just doing this. So that's what upper-lower coordination is. Because we have elbows and we have knees, those joints kind of correspond to each other as a relationship. We have shoulders and hips, those joints kind of work together. And then your feet and your hands, they work together. That's a common rule of thumb that we use as a guideline. So when we do this, those 6 items are actually working in sync. There's a down and up, but a lot of times we don't realize that movements are directional, and directional creates a force or action in a direction. So your body works this relationship, sometimes complementing the movement, sometimes counteracting the movement, sometimes one movement follows the other, sometimes one movement leads the other. So your body has to create the action that allows that to happen. So when we do this, the first thing to do is sink the elbow. Right? When we sink the elbow, we sink the knees. So sinking the elbow is dropping. But once it starts to drop, you have to track it, and you have to let it go to here. And then it goes down, and then up. But the only way it can go down is actually when the shoulder releases and it allows it to turn. So that's an action. It's not the hands and the knees working independently. They're working as a function of each other. And you have to develop the feeling for that motion. So when Rob does that drill, when you go backwards like this, it allows us to go forward and backward. So when you're doing the repulsive monkey, it's not just a hand move that goes from here to there. It takes us from here, and then the hand and the feet actually start to tie together. We fold the elbow and we fold the knee, and then we create this give and take. So when one hand is going out, the other hand is going back. And you know what? You're controlling the direction of movement by your torso. And what does your torso do? It rotates off the axis that is in a vertical line. So when we fold and we set up that position, so what makes the movement appear to be soft, fluid, and flowing? It's because we're not doing this. Right? That's kind of linear. It's because we rise and we fall. We rise and we fall. Or we rise and sink. So that allows the movement to become as if it has a wave, like it's fluid. So that's kind of a wave energy. Wave energy is like in the ocean, when gravity acts on the water on Earth, water actually starts to move, right? And it creates action. Water is very powerful depending on how fast it's dropping with gravity. So tsunamis, you know what a tsunami is? When there's an earthquake and the earth opens, the water rushes down that crevice. And depending on how wide and how fast or how deep it opens, that water rushes down, falling with gravity. And it sucks everything in its way down. That's what a tsunami typically is. So your body is using a wave. It's using a wave. And that's what continually makes it seem like it's fluid. Because sometimes you use, metaphors or analogies with water. Water is... So that's why we had to build this concept in. Just like preparation. When we go down and it goes up and we sink. And we do this as a drill because you only do it once in the form. Or maybe twice because you do it at the beginning and at the end. We don't really do it any more than that. So if you did the form twice or once a week, or maybe twice a week, you did this 4 times. How can you perfect the movement doing it 4 times? So part of the skill development is really the repetition. So these movements are fundamentals or basics or drills, whatever you want to call them. They're like the scales to music, but for us, it's really building body mechanics, body motion, and getting the body to understand. So when we sink, it's not just this motion, we're activating our joints. We're getting our body to begin to discover and answer to itself what it thinks it's supposed to be doing. And after decades of doing this, then you begin to understand it. But in the beginning, it's just a movement that you mimic. You really don't have any depth of understanding, right? So this is vertical and horizontal. This is right to left. Strum the loop. So in the modern form, on 20 Yang 24, we go after brush knee to this. Isn't that strum the loop? This is strum the loop. But how do we get there? We do this, right? So when we do this, and do this, and do this, we created a circular motion, right? So circular motions really are horizontal and vertical dimensions without corners, right? It's a square without corners. So while we do this as a motion in the Tai Chi paradigm drills, when we do this in the brush knee and we go like this, what do? We've replicated a motion that we've been doing for a while, but did your body recognize that that's what's happening at that moment? Only if you pay attention to it, right? Or now that I bring it up, you say, oh, okay, maybe I should do that a few more times, right? But if you do this, now it's not just the hands. Your hands did this. But what did your legs do? We went from here, we did the shift of the toe, to the toe and the heel. So that's footwork. We've done a drill like this before, right? Toe and heel, toe and heel. That's building the body mechanics for the feet to have a relationship, because as the toe goes down and presses with the heel, its opposite happens, and it's like they're working together, right? Now when we take that half step forward, we do that with the legs. We learn that motion somewhere, right? So we shift, and then we open, and then we turn the body, and then we reset as the elbows drop. So as the elbows sink, your knees should sink, the shoulders relax, your hips should relax. So that's the relationship we're talking about as you're building this intelligent body, right? The whole goal is to develop what we call understanding strength. In Tai Chi it's called Dong Ging, understanding strength. Ging is it's kind of a trained skill. So this is understanding that position and strength to find that final position, getting everything to time within those phases. So when we're here, when I turn and I settle, where did the turning come from? We learned to turn here. We learned to rise here. We learned to open and close here. So all of the things that we do in our fundamentals are actually inside that single posture. But we didn't realize it or recognize it because most of us don't think along those lines because we just follow along. But there is some, there's a level of analysis that you have to begin to understand. There's a level of sensitivity and feeling as your body starts to discover. Then there's that level of discovery becomes sensitivity. That sensitivity becomes an awareness. That awareness becomes part of the innate training. That's how it actually becomes reflex. So everything that we do becomes it's a sort of an autonomic thing that happens, but it's really entering subconscious behavior so that you no longer think about it. Everything that we do that requires skill goes through that process. If you're a musician, right, you go through the same process. How do you memorize a song? By doing it over and over. How do you make it sound like it's supposed to? By understanding, a lot more than just playing the instrument. So when we do Tai Chi, it's movement, but it's understanding what the body form is, what the timing is. Now we're not dealing with a sound, we're dealing with a look. So the visuals are very important. So, we know what aesthetically pleasing is, but do we know what awkwardness is? That's like two extremes. So we try to avoid the awkwardness stage to try to reach that level of refinement, and that becomes aesthetically pleasing. It's coordinated, it's timed, it looks graceful, it looks soft, it looks fluid. It has all these things that we talk about all the time. But the missing link is, how do you get that to happen? Just practice? No, you have to practice with a mindfulness and an understanding of the principles, the guidelines, everything that kind of ties it all together. So, that's theoretical. When you're a new student, theory doesn't really matter because you only want to see what you can memorize. But after 10 years or 20 years of doing this, you should have a theoretical understanding based on concept that we've discussed. But, we don't really focus on that because we just do it for fun. But after 25 years, it's not really just doing it for fun anymore. It's become part of you. So you have to take that practice and then just start to refine it and take it to a level of perfection. Not for me, it's actually for yourself, right? All of us do it for ourselves, really, essentially, because we're dealing with what we call self-cultivation. When you meditate, you're not doing it because you want other people to clear their mind. You're doing it because you want to clear your mind and be in the moment and let the body experience it, right? All of this is, that kind of practice. Whether people, if you're a high-level musician, you play for a reason because you don't have an audience anymore. you're playing for yourself, right? When you do the form, you do your drills, you do it, nobody's around. You're by yourself a lot of times. So that's what, a disciplined practitioner, they practice on their own a bit. It doesn't have to be hours of a lot of things. It might be just doing that, just experiencing that. So when we even open the form, when we shift and we step, we have to soften this movement, because substantial and insubstantial means that your feet become softer, because when you shift your weight, it's not abrupt. In fact, your skeleton becomes soft because it's allowing your body to transfer weight and settle into a foot that's relaxing. You're not planting your foot like this. You're settling the foot like this. And then you begin to lift. And then you drop. And then you press. But just to let you realize that when you lift, you feel a sense of upwardness. But then when it goes up, you feel like your body is going down. And then when you sink your elbow, your knees bend. And then when you press down, whether you're going up as you expand the body, and we do that when we go from this position to this position. We expand the body. And then if we relax, we can sink the elbow. So your body will actually respond to those actions. So that once we're here and we shift and we start to move, and this is in the Wu form or the paradigm form, we do that. In the 24 movement form, after we open, we have to do this. And then we turn and create the hold the ball position. And then when we step out, we do part the horse's mane. Then we shift. And then we open. And then we do part the horse's mane. So when you do part the horse, think of this as a splitting. Now the hands separate, not because it does that. It's because the body's shifting forward and the hands are just allowing that to happen. That's a passive action. The hand is going down because the body is going forward. And then when we sit back and toe out, the body, and this is one unit, we get to here, we open, and then we slide up again and allow this hand to just relax, because the shoulder is not pulling, it's transitioning. Okay, then we do it again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We shift, we cross through center, turn to the right, and adjust the body back to center. So you settle into the position because you release the legs. Now we turn, bring the foot back in, bring it out and fold the elbow, and begin to push forward. We turn, step out, and begin to push. So you can feel your fingertips and even your arms feel like there's energy flowing through to the fingertip. Then you shift, you open the elbows and sink. Then we turn the hands, bring this hand to 45 degrees behind us, and we begin to repulse the monkey. And then we relax the shoulders and sink the elbow. We lift and then go back, and it's done 3.5 times, or 4 times with the hand movement. And then sink. Now here is the half movement. It stops here. We flip over, step up, and then we ward off, roll back, sink, press, vertical down, and then project it out. We relax the shoulder, turn, and we're going to hold the ball again. And then we step out, sink down, push off the back leg, and reach up. Turn to your right, stroke down to roll back, fold the elbow, and press. Sit back and push. Now we sit back, initiate the two wave of hands, look to the back corner, hook your wrists, move the foot in, turn the hips, step out, and hold this arm straight out like this. Okay, then turn back, and then shift your weight. Shift the weight. And back to single whip. Okay, once you're in single whip, we shift. Touch down, fold the elbow, palm strike face. Then we move into this position. So we go up before we go down. Down, up, and then out. Then we go down, and then out and up. One, then we turn, make a full turn. We go down, scoop up, and then extend. Then we scoot down, go to downward posture, and then go up, go down, turn, down, up, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we go all the way to the corner, half step, insert the needle, fan through the back, turn, stroke down, parry, and punch. Okay, step up, punch. Leopard and tiger springs to mountain, and push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Straighten and close. So you practice it methodically in keeping in mind the motion and direction, because every movement is like a vector, has a direction. And you have to define those directions and define the elbow and the knees. The elbows actually lead and direct the movements, because without the elbows, it's only out here. So without the elbow, you can do all these gestures out here, but the shoulder and the elbow doesn't necessarily connect with it. But once you use the two sides and they connect, then they can't connect unless they go through your body. Because your body has this alignment that's like a crisscross. Right? They work opposites, like just like when you walk. When you walk, you have an opposite relationship. That relationship is something that the body has as a natural relationship Normally, it should be like that, but we lose some of that because we don't, we really don't pay attention to it. I think, you know, animal instinct, like cats and dogs and four-legged animals, that they always, when they walk, you can see that there's a coordination. They don't walk like this. They kind of go through the motion. When a tiger walks, they actually, their paws do this. Like they're soft. As heavy as they are, they touch and then they press. And they go through that motion. You ever see them? Yeah. So it's very gentle because they're just kind of going like that. They're going like that. And that's how we should be moving. Then you don't abuse your body. We're walking always slamming our feet into the ground, banging the soles of our feet, injuring our knees from running miles and miles, which, if you read some of the things about running, it's really bad for your joints because people run excessively. You think you run 25 miles a day or do marathons, you think your heart is getting stronger, but your joints are taking a toll. So after you abuse your feet, you try to buy sneakers that make it work better. But really, so it gives the sneaker business a really good, business because they're making shoes that are sort of ergonomically correct. So they correct, or they really put rubber in the soles of your feet so your feet don't actually do as much. But it really doesn't allow your musculature to work. So it's just par for the course. We don't pay attention to body mechanics until later on we have problems. So, but so I bring this up a lot because we've been here a long time, and some have ailments, some don't. We're all aging, but we can realize that you know it's just another thing that happens. But because we're still active, we're probably better than most people our age. Or people that are worse than us, right? Except for Rob, because he's not even 60 yet. I don't think Arena, are you 60 yet? No, you're in your 50s, right? Yeah. And the youngest guy here is Eddie, because he's not a gray hair in his head, and he's 63. Belmont calls him the kid. He covered my class one time, and I came back. He said, "Oh, the kid did pretty well." I said, "The kid?" I said, "Who?" He said, like Eddie. I said, "He's not a kid." I said, "He's in his 60s." They said, "No, no, no, no." Yeah, yeah. So he had trouble signing up for the senior center because he had to go through a blood test. Because you have to be 55 to be you have to get a lunch, the $2 lunches. You have to be 55. The problem was he eats like 5 people, so for $2, the center would lose money. So, but what we went through, and what we went through is actually refining a form. You have to go through that, and you have to practice it like that on your own a bit. Even though a lot of people won't like to practice on it, you have to go through it in class. So we can do the 42 anyways. Okay. Good. Deep breathing. So Lucian just told me one of the schools in Chinatown, Silky Way. You know Silky Way, Lawrence. They 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 moved their place a couple of times, but they decided they're gonna give it up. Yeah, they're gonna. No, Silky Way was sold to this group, and then they opened. Uh, what's Oh, yeah, so they have a school there. They opened about 10 years ago, and then they moved. No, the pandemic came. No, they actually moved to another location, and they were gonna fix it up. And then, so with the pandemic hit, they said, "Oh, at our age, it's not worth it. Just want they just decided to wrap it up." I said, "Your age?" I said, "I'm your age." I'm older than a couple of those guys. Uh, so I know about two. I know Ducky Wayne, and then Larry Wong. I know him from. Actually, Larry Wong, he studied Hung Gao back in the late '60s. You know, actually, he was at the group with us. I taught him a little Gungji Kun. No. If they wouldn't go to their own place, they were not gonna come. Yeah, no. It's going through some rough things. A lot of like Walim, one of the other schools, they were supposed to reopen, but they had over the summer they had closed two branches, one in Malden and one in Quincy. So they're kind of like in idle, waiting to see what happens because So it isn't easy, but we're struggling along. The difference is that I have a lot of long-term supporters, and most of my students are not just kids. They have mainly kids, and they don't have a lot of people that stayed for a long time. So, that's their struggle. They're not really Tai Chi schools per se, so they don't have a following that started 25 years ago that stayed with them. So they were just like, kind of hit or miss, hit or miss. So you really can't rely on that. No one's going to come back when they're like that. So that's why I really don't have any kids anymore. I have about 5, maybe 6 kids that are still here. The rest, well, I stopped taking kids at 9. So I don't know where they are. They're all doing Zoom with Lucien. Or some of them are. So, but anyways, yeah, the first 15 years, all the kids that grew up here, they grew up here, Sam and, Celine, they grew up here. Then they went off and but there was a good, they were there for, I don't know, but 10, 12 years, some of the kids. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had several generations, but then about 5 years ago, things started to change. Didn't get the same sort of dedicated students, and I think a lot of it has to do parents, because they just drop the kids off. The kids do their thing, and they don't stay with it. So the parents not that involved, and I think some of it had to do with because my kids were involved, so the families were more involved, and then Helen was more involved. It was like an era, you know. So, but that happens with, lots of businesses, and an era ago. So it's hard to maintain it because, but the good thing about what happened here was when the kids left, the parents stayed. A lot of parents are still here. In fact, in fact, these parents, like Eddie, wasn't a student here until his son left. And Sonny's the same way, and the rest of them, And then Rob's the same thing. His daughter was here. She's in college now, but she's taking a break, right? Yeah, but she stayed long enough and Nola, they all stayed a long time. But they're all gone now. They grow up and they leave. Some will come back. Actually, Sabrina and Sarah still come on Fridays, and they're like the only college kids that really kind of came back and work a little bit. Well, actually, Caitlin was pretty much involved. Connor doesn't. Connor just comes here and studies. He comes here to do his homework. He's studying for. So, they don't do kung fu. They just use my space because I support them in that way. He comes here. He's here 6 days a week. It's like a library. So, anyways, we can bow. Okay, ready? Bow. So, no. I have, if I do that, then I have nothing to do. No, I have stuff to do, but yeah, it's good. Huh?
Before you bring the cabinets, you need me to remove all the old ones, right?
Yeah, we'll schedule that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's gonna be when I move them, they're gonna be heavy as anything. So we're gonna have to Luciano is gonna get his flatbed, or we might have to rent a truck or something to get it.
I removed some of it. So
Yeah. Well, actually, when they remove, we have to go and see if the floor's okay and all. So I'll come out and take a look and see what else needs to be done, prep before. I might move them there and then have them there, and then we'll see what after you take them all out. See what the floor is like underneath. Might have to fill it in with some plywood if it needs to. Kind of level that off and then put the cabinets in. And when we put the cabinets in, it's really we're going to butt them together, screw them all together, and just lift them right in place. I'll do the bottoms first. And once the bottoms are in, but you're going to have to decide on what the sink is. If you're using that, guys, then I'll find out what the sink is.
Yeah, they're going to get me a sink.
Yeah, so I'll find out dimensions. He's going to cut the hole in the granite, but my cabinet, I have a back rail on it. I might have to notch that out so the sink will fit, so that
I think it's like a 29-inch sink.
Yeah, so the back, because in the back I have a plate there, but the thing is, I usually cut around it so that the holes for the faucets will go right through, because sometimes those stems are hard to screw through the wood and everything, So then I get all that stuff ready. But then, and then, as long as there's the plumbing, you use the same location, so that's all there. Then the back of this cabinet is going to have, the sink cabinet. I have a back panel, so either we'll drill the holes there, or I'll open up a bigger hole so that, so see where the location of those are.
I was thinking about cutting more of the cabinet away and putting the stove in now, packing weight on that.
Cutting away your cabinets?
Yeah, and putting the stove in. Because the stove's just a slide.
Yeah, it's a slide in. But those dimensions are set, so if I set it for 30 inches, it'll go right in.
Yeah.
But are you using a stove now? You're not?
No.
Well, you can hook it up and use it, and we can disconnect it.
Yeah.
Or you want to put it right in the location where it's supposed to be. But we don't know what the floor is going to be. We don't know what the floor.
Yeah, the floor, it looks, I don't know, probably maybe, like I said, a piece of plywood or something underneath it.
Yeah, if it goes like that and then drops in, it's better to fill it so it's flush, because, we'll see. Take a look. The hardest one to build is going to be the refrigerator one, because I have to actually get 2 panels and then.
You can do that last, right?
Yeah, we'll do that last, because it's going to lift it up, because I build it down and then lift it up, push it in, and put it all together. There's a lot of stuff that I have to fit.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. We'll bow in and then we'll get started. Irene, you want to do a few? Okay, ready? Everybody's running a little late. It feels like Halloween for some reason. All right. Oh, maybe it's the mass. Okay. Here, I'll show you a picture of the. Did I show you when the stuff came in? How big? Oh. I didn't take a whole lot of pictures. I'm going to take more, but no, I mean, this is just my garage. Let's see. I have to find the album. I made a. Let's see where are they?
Yeah, I'm trying to build a little sensor motor for the guys in the scoop house. Just going to have a little temperature and humidity detection, and then basically raise and lower the windows based on that. I was like, you probably had something like that for your needs.
No, mine was just solenoids and watering. The temperature is regulated by your heat and thermostats. And so when it came in, it was like that, right? So that was tough to get in. Well, that's just a pallet of stuff. So then I had to open it all up because it was really. So I had to trash all the stuff, cut it all up. That took me a while. So that's all the pieces. That's all pieces, all the little pieces that go together.
Same jigsaw puzzle.
There was one panel that was damaged, so I'm trying to get them to replace that one. But that must have slid when it was inside because that was all boxed and everything. You know, they made like, you know, they ship overseas. I had to cut all that plywood up to throw it away. So these are the panels. And so I got a lot of stuff, right?
I don't see the colored ones. Those are different.
No, those are the doors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually here, but that I'm not opening that because you know I have to drill hinge things in it and all that stuff. So I do that after I get the cabinets ready because I have to mount the hinges and see where those holes are gonna go. Yeah. So these are your runners. I just put those on. These things, you know, they slide up. Huh?
Yeah, it'll be nice when we can actually use the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, we get the bottoms and then get the guy to come in and do a template for the thing. Because that won't really affect the big one either. Where the refrigerator goes. And then after that, we do the tops, and then we'll see how we can close, you know, like finish the top with all that stuff. So it'll be nice. And then we can do the island too, because that's separate.
Did you nail that in or you just sit it there?
Actually, I have, it's going to sit there, but I have adjustable things on it so to level it, perfectly level it. And those levels can hold up to, you know, 400 pounds per set, so they go across. So it holds up all that granite. You're going to need a big granite because you want to overhang, right? So the only thing you need once that's leveled is a 2x4 screwed into the floor, and then it's just, so it'll never shift, but it's really the weight of everything will just be there. So you just need one stabilizer. It's a 2x. And I'll screw that into the floor and then screw the cabinet back on the floor to it, the base, and then it won't go anywhere. Oh, so Rob, I guess that whole conversation went across the airwaves. That whole conversation went off across the airwaves. 3 continuous steps. Okay, ready? Begin. Okay. Okay, let's try it again, but let's try to smooth it out a little and get more volume in the motion. Even though, volume meaning that more of your hands are going through the motion. When you're here, you you bring the space from the turning of the waist. You have upper, you have lower, rising and falling. You have forward and back. Forward and back here is more like this rather than like this, like in Tai Chi or Kung Fu. So the forward and backward movement is still directional. This is forward, this is backward, you see. So you still have that concept. Because every action forward, there is action go backward, because that's the only way we can create motions. And if you move to the right, you move to the left. So you move this way, then it comes back to center. That's, in this case, it's left to right center. In Strum the Loop, we go right to left center. So you're always passing through the two 45-degree directions and meeting in the center somehow. Right? So that's what torso movement, waist movement is. But we don't always pay attention to the fact that it actually is doing that. That's where you can create more passive sort of motions in the arms without actually forcing the arm in that direction. So that's where we lose, the perspective of what a movement is like this, right? We turn like this to block, but you only have to block to here, because once you intercept, then when you turn, that creates the action. So I call it a passive action, but it's because it's a function of. It's a function of. It's a function of. See? So, and then the idea of the body counterbalancing, maintaining central equilibrium. That's what that is. So Tai Chi, we call it the same thing. Central equilibrium is, what do you call it in Chinese? Zhongsam, right? Center. You have your center is really here. When you go forward and back, it's still maintaining that center. So that's expanding and contracting to maintain equilibrium. Okay, ready? So let's do that one more time, nice and slow. Okay, good. So, so Stephen, do you have light in there? How come there's no light in the room? There's no light in the dressing room, huh? You got light? Okay. All right, so let's try Flamona, and that's another version of that form. Okay. So one of the things that we have that's unique about these forms that seems to be different from others, that it's pretty continuous. You move from one movement to the next. It actually happens in Hunggar too, but we don't, it's not as obvious because we break it up by the horse and the leaning, the horse and the leaning. Whereas here, you go from here, you go right into that, or you go right into that, and you go right into that. So the continuity of movement seems, much more, it's a smaller circle, so it's seems like it's more refined, but it's really the preset of the movement is smaller, so it makes it feel like it's harder to get it to happen. So, so if you're doing something big like this, or you're something big like this, you can see that that's happening. But if you're like this, or you're like this, or you're like this, you don't really see your setups, right? So, okay, let's try it again. Ready? Ready? Begin? Go. I think one of the things is that when you sink here, don't just go from the waist, because you lose, the butt goes backwards, you lose the base. So when you sink, you have to sink down and keep the tailbone vertical. So from here, it comes out. See what I mean? Yeah. So try not to lose by going forward. We see the body going down, but when you go down, you actually should be sinking here. Now, when you're here, the projection upward. See, if you see the elbows and knees, right? See, so the upper lower coordination. We talked about that in Tai Chi earlier, that the elbows and the knees, shoulders and the hips, and the feet and the hands. I mean, that's something we talk about all the time. But does it happen when we're doing the movement? We know it as a concept, but the body doesn't really recognize what that relationship is until you actually do it. So the specificity of training is really that. You have to do that motion until you begin to feel. Right here, when we're doing this, or, in the circles, it's already building that integration, but you have to feel the action. If you have it, this is in Funfija, or you're here, when you turn and sink, you have to feel what that relationship is. That relationship it's virtual in a sense, because we're imagining that that's how it's supposed to happen. But on the functional side, where you have tangibility, or the movement is tangible because you're creating a certain action, then it starts to make sense. The fact that you chun like this, we know that it's drilling, and we know that it's actually creating an action, but the drilling action is really not just like this. It actually has a projection that goes forward. Dragon claws like that, palm strikes faces like that. But what you're trying to do, the smoothness of the movement really has to do with when we're here. See? So when the hand comes, it's a softness, but then at the same time, it's moving. It's moving, and it's projecting from the body. Because when I'm here, when I go like this, I tilt it, right? But my body closed. Now when I'm here, I turn. So this turn and this turn has to be working together, right? So when we say to cover the body, when you turn the body here, The reason why you turn here is because we want to turn here. So this and this, though they don't work by themselves. They have to work as a unit. That's a right and left relationship. So when I'm here and I turn, there's the turn. Because I bring my shoulder here, now the turn is there. So the force goes that way. But then when it goes that way, then it has an angular position here that when you see it goes here. Now this angular position has a mechanical advantage. What is that mechanical advantage? It's a wedge. A triangle is a wedge. You know, it's slanted, it goes in, and it starts to create a directional force. Just like the thing that's in the bottom of the door there. It's not really creating a force pushing because it's not moving. But when the door pushes up against it, it creates a force that can keep it from coming forward. So when the hand goes like this, that's a wedge.